Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Entropy Podcast. I'm your host, Francis Gorman. This is episode 13. If you're enjoying our content, I'd really appreciate it if you can like and follow the show wherever it is you get your podcasts from. Today's guest has spent his career fine-tuning the science of human behavior. Robin Dreeke is a former FBI special agent and former head of the FBI's counterintelligence behavior analysis program. He's a master of building trust in the most high-stakes environments, whether it's recruiting foreign spies, decoding human behavior, or training executives on how to lead with influence and authority. Robin is also a best-selling author with numerous titles to his name, including Unbreakable Alliances and The Code of Trust, just to name a few. He's also the founder of People Formula, where he teaches organizations how to use trust as a strategic asset. Robin, it's a pleasure to have you here with me today.
Thanks, Francis. Happy to be here. And out of all those things, I always got to throw this in there. The number one skill set in the world to use trust for and building unbreakable alliances is with my kids. My two adult kids, we strategize these things every single day for great relationships in life for all aspects of it. So thanks for the great intro.
I must get you over to talk to my 4-year-old. I don't think.
Yes, it all starts there. That's where the life arc begins. What a great segue, because that's our life arcs. Because when we discover the life arcs and that spark and inspiration for who we are today, it all starts around that age. The things that we do that allow us to feel good about ourselves, feel safe, and feel seen. When those things that they're experiencing at that age is the things that we're going to repeat throughout our lives. And so if they're good, healthy things, they're going to be good. If they're unhealthy things, they're going to be lessons learned, and things will work on the rest of our lives of overcoming. So that's a great age.
It certainly is a great age. They're full of love and admiration one minute, and they're screaming and shouting at you the next. So I'm working on building different strategies to cope with it. But he's a great little fella. I can't give out about him.
It's awesome. Being dad is the number one title in the world that I was telling my son this the other day. So my son's a Marine Corps fighter pilot, and my daughter's a labor and delivery nurse. They're both in their mid to late 20s now. And it is the only, I won't even call it a job. A job is something that you do 9 to 5. It's the only role I've had in my life that I wanted to show up every day. I loved every day, and I would do it all over again.
Yeah, it's really a privilege.
It is a privilege.
Robin, before we get into it, you might just take us a little bit back to your background. I know we touched on a few aspects there, but you've had a really interesting career and it started quite young. Can you bring us on a bit of the journey just so the listeners can understand where it is you've come from to get to where you are now?
Absolutely. And that's part of that life arc. So I grew up in upstate New York here in the States, and I grew up in an underwhelming financial family. So I had to learn a lot of grit and resilience and self-reliance at an early age. I got myself into the United States Naval Academy through that same grit, resilience, and ability to forge great alliances. Got through the Naval Academy by the same things. They kept wanting to throw me out because my academics were a little subpar. And all I ever wanted to do in life was become an astronaut, naval aviator, jet pilot, and aerospace engineer, all those really cool things. And that fell drastically short because someone that has the kind of academic or lack of academic prowess I did failed out of those things. But I wound up having the greatest path ever because I wanted to become a United States Marine when I graduated. And in the Marine Corps, I learned the greatest lesson of all, and that I spent a lifetime of those reps already of learning how to solve my problems. And I did so by having healthy relationships. But really, when it comes to leadership, and I had a couple humbling moments in the Marine Corps where I was failing as a leader, and that is I had to start shifting that focus from solving my problems to understanding the problems and challenges of others and being a resource to solving theirs. And that's where that shift started happening. From the Marine Corps, my last duty station in Marine Corps was at Parris Island, South Carolina, where I was a company and series commander down there in charge of a lot of recruits and drill instructors. Came in the FBI in 1997, and I got assigned to the New York field office up in Manhattan, New York, where I was assigned to work counterintelligence. Had no idea what it was, but I got assigned to work it, and that was taking that skill set of being focused on others and solving the problems of others and applying it to recruiting spies. And so working in the world of counterintelligence, my job was to recruit Russian military intelligence officers at the United Nations and all over. And I got on a behavioral team for counterintelligence. And so that is kind of the profiling side, but on the counterintelligence side, that's an adjunct job for us in the Bureau. I then took a bunch of transfers around the Bureau, still working counterintelligence, eventually wound up at FBI headquarters, ran a national program against Russia at headquarters. Then got asked to go down to Quantico, Virginia, where I was in charge of training advanced courses for counterintelligence. Wound up taking over the behavioral team that I'd been on since 2001 and became the chief of the behavioral analysis program, where I strategized every single day recruitment operations, double agent operations, false flag operations, espionage investigations, what I call the hooky spooky spy stuff. And what I found is throughout all this and throughout my entire life, the arc has been really pretty plain and simple. Strategizing healthy, strong relationships forged on a foundation of trust. And that is what is most remarkable, is that all these things in the world of counterintelligence or in anything in life, you need allies. In order to have allies, they have to trust you. You have to inspire someone to feel safe with you if you're going to move forward. And so I did all that, retired in 2018, wrote a number of books, both in the Bureau and after the Bureau. And here we are today.
I have to ask Robin, and this one's itching at me. How do you recruit a Russian spy?
First, how do you recruit a Russian spy? The greatest question of all time. First, you really don't. It's the first misnomer that you get in all the spy movies, is that there's some great one-liner you can use, or if you throw enough money at a problem, it'll solve everyone's wildest dreams and aspirations. And in my experience with the great people around me that were extremely successful, and as well as my own, it's already inside someone. And so what's happened in anything we deal with in life is there is always a wickedly challenging problem we're all looking at, whether it's, for you and I, whether it's our kids growing up, we want a good, prosperous life for them. We want maybe some education opportunity, whether they're going to a trade school or higher education thing or whatever it is. We might have some issues and challenges with their own finances, maybe paying off a house, maybe some wants and dreams or a nice vacation, or in a lot of cases, there's elder parent issues where there's taking care of our parents as they're getting elderly is an issue and a challenge. There's always some sort of challenge. And so what people are willing to do for those challenges to solve them is where we come into the world of spies. And so someone that has the type of information that can solve the national security issues of the United States and all our NATO allies and what we call the Five Eyes, the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, as well as our other NATO allies, these individuals have the jewels to the kingdom because they know what they're going after. They know what they're trying to steal from countries like the United States and our allies. And so that is a resource that I need and want. And likewise, I have resources that can solve their problems as well. So what you're doing is you're looking for people that already have identified this critical life challenge, and then you're trying to position yourself in a way that they will find you, they will feel safe with you, and they will trust you to be able to solve that problem and keep them alive. And so how do you recruit a spy? You don't. You place yourself in their line of sight in a position that they can trust you to solve that critical life challenge that they have. Sounds simple, right?
Sounds really simple. I must try it out.
It's really funny. It really is. Here's the challenging part of it, is doing a deep enough dive to understand another human being. Get over yourself, get over your ego, your vanity, your insecurities, your trauma responses, your own trigger points, to really truly see another human being for who they are and not judge that human being, to not guess at what those challenges, priorities, and pain points are, but truly understand what they are. Allow yourself to be in their line of sight. Allow yourself to enter their lives when they decide they're looking and that they can trust you when you display the great behaviors of trust. Again, because think about this, if you're willing to even contemplate someone coming into your life or inviting someone into your life to be this resource to solve one of these critical life issues, if they're using any sort, or even if you think they're using any manipulation, subterfuge, or deception, there's no trust. No trust, no relationship, because you're about to place your life and potentially your family's life in their hands. They won't trust you, and there will be no recruitment. There'll be no cooperation. And recruitment's kind of a crass word to me anyway as well. It's always a cooperation between two people trying to solve some critical life challenges and problems.
That's really interesting, Robin. And I think it's a nice segue into what I want to talk about next, which is we're in an era of digital transformation, and when it comes high levels of disruption. We're seeing large tech firms kind of demanding employees back to the office where they were used to that either hybrid or remote comfort. And then we're seeing AI come across the stratosphere with other emerging technologies like post-quantum, which are going to be highly disruptive to individuals' lives at every level. Is trust being eroded by technology, or is there a way that leadership teams need to start considering the employees and their workforce, and how do they foster collaboration with these tools and these changes in order to get the outcomes that they want, but to find that right balance for everyone in that situation?
So, really detailed question. I'm going to try to break it down to a really simple answer. And the simple answer is, as Homo sapiens, as we've evolved for hundreds of thousands of years, we all seek, crave, and need the same things. And the last development of the last 10, 20, or a couple of decades of technology hasn't changed us and what our needs, wants, and dreams as aspirations are at our core. Technology has changed how we get that information and how we assess that information, but still the same need is there. That is, we're always going to act in our own best interests in terms of our safety, security, and our prosperity from our point of view. We're going to do those with people that inspire us to trust them when they display open, honest communication, transparency, and vulnerability. And so with that as a foundation of understanding what we're all seeking and craving, how does technology impact that? Well, technology is assaulting that in some areas because we think we can be satisfied with that human connection that we seek and crave with being present for someone else and being organic with someone else. But technology can't quite fit that bill. So you might require like 50,000 likes in order to get one person in person to say, wow, you did a really good job today, Francis. I really appreciate it when you did X, Y, and Z. And I'll tell you what, your podcast is doing really phenomenal. I can't wait to retweet this and rebroadcast this out to my followers as well. Because when you make that personal, very, very granular connection, that means a lot more. And so it's just understanding how to use technology as a partner and not a crutch. And so that's where trust can keep building, using it as a partner and a collaborator, especially with AI. When people start getting lazy, that's when things start falling apart. Because here's another thing we do as human beings, because of our millennia of evolution, we strive and we thrive when we're in deprivation mode. We are not genetically, biologically engineered to do well in abundance. And right now, I mean, just think about how much this makes sense in today's world, in today's economies. As challenging as we all think it is in the present moment, not 100 or 200 years ago, people were still dying of famine. Well, we've genetically engineered our food, so we can feed the world. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not food challenges and hunger, strife, and all these other things because of economics, because of policies, because of politics, and all that. But we have actually been able to, as Neil deGrasse Tyson says, and all the big food conglomerates that are modifying our food, we can feed the world. We've overcome so much as a species. And even with information, we've gotten so much information, but we still create more problems because a great book that talks about this called The Abundance Crisis or The Comfort Crisis. We are not meant to live in comfort. Just think about the times of our history when we've made these huge leaps forward in both societal things, economic areas, technological areas. It's when we've been at our lowest, because when we are in deprivation mode, that's when we innovate to solve those problems. And so when we're a society inside of comfort can be too much technology. If we're leaning on it, or not just leaning on it, but giving it all over, we then create chaos. And so using tools to keep moving forward and innovating is really what's key and critical. And the behaviors of trust have not changed at all. We're always consistently seeking open, honest communication, transparency, and vulnerability of those people that we're engaging with, because those behaviors allow us to feel safe because they empower us with situational awareness. When we have situational awareness, we feel in control. When we feel in control, we feel safe. I tried to make it a simple answer, but I think I overcomplicated it.
Lots of good detail in there, Robin. Don't worry about it. And I think so. The vulnerable aspect and the situational awareness are key parts of that to bring it through. As someone who manages a team myself, to get the most out of the work we do on a day-to-day basis, have you got any strategies, simple strategies, just to help the team function more cohesively, to help us move forward? How would you support someone in those scenarios?
I think there's really two critical areas in there for a team to be bought in, be all buying in, and put 120% of effort into everything they're doing. One, and Simon Sinek talks about in Start With Why, is everyone's got to understand the big overarching why and where they fit into that why. I mean, there's a great story and anecdote that people have told numerous times of some person that saw themselves as a lower end worker who's mopping a floor just was about to get frustrated and quit the job in the restaurant he's working in because he says, I'm just a lowly sweeper in the store. And then the manager said to him, the leader of the organization, but you understand the impact you're making. He goes, no, I'm just a floor sweeper. He says, yeah, but what's your goal and aspiration? He goes, I'd like to be something more than a floor sweeper. And he says, well, here's how that works. He said, if you sweep this floor well and you clean up well, what does that do to our ratings with the health department? Does it go up or go down? He goes, well, that goes up. I said, well, and that goes up. Do you think when we put that sign on the front of the store that says we're a 5-star rating for our cleanliness, that we're going to have more customers come in? He goes, yeah, we'll probably have more customers come in. If we have more customers come in and we have a need for more people on the staff and growth, who do you think we're going to want to hire, from within or from without? So everyone has got to understand their role towards that greater why. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is people need to be seen, they need to be heard, and they need to have every conversation about them. And you can take the same message that you have and you can shift it by shifting the focus of that message in terms of them. And this is what I call the golden keys of communication that I pontificate about all the time, because these are the 4 keys I was missing my entire life until poof, I started putting together. Because when we spend a lifetime, our first formative years of life in that arc of solving our own challenges and problems instead of focusing on others, because especially if we come up in a challenging situation, we're bullied like we all are, we're felt disenfranchised, whatever it is, we're so focused on our challenges and problems, our language then becomes about us. And here's the 4 keys. 1, seek the thoughts and opinions of others instead of monologuing and pontificating on and on about your own. 2, talk in terms of the other person's challenges, their priorities, their pain points instead of yours. 3, this is the key crux to absolutely everything. This is non-judgmental active curiosity. What I mean by that is non-judgmental, meaning whatever your own morals, ethics, and beliefs happen to be, doesn't mean you have to agree with someone else, means you seek to understand at a very deep level. This is what's called very active empathy. And I use that word active and active curiosity, meaning this. Take your curiosity to the upper level. Don't just be curious about what it is you want to know. Be very curious about what it is they want to say. And the way you do that is you listen to the words they're saying. Don't stop the mid-sentence and ask another question about what you want to know. Listen to the words they're saying, the stories and anecdotes they're sharing, and explore those with a very easy what question, quote unquote what, W-H-A-T. What was next? What was the goal and aspiration you had? What path did you think you're going to be walking? I mean, just look at those 3 questions right now, and you're going to get a whole buffet of what's important to them. And then finally, you empower people with choices with the beautiful word if that's something you're comfortable with. If you prefer to do it this way or this way, what you think would be best forward for you. So using those 4 golden keys of communication, shifting the focus from you to others, people understanding the overarching why of where they fit into the dynamic of the organization, group, and organization, that's what really gets teams on board.
That's really insightful, Robin, and it's so simple when you break it down.
It is
into your 4 different pillars. I was starting to have a read of the Code of Trust, and you've got 5 principles in there: suspend your ego, be non-judgmental, honor reason, validate others, and be generous. And you unpackage them and speak about them in a way that's powerful. Can you talk a little bit about those 5 principles for me and where they came from?
I could talk about each of them for way too long. Pick one. What was your favorite that you want to go on to, Francis?
Well, I think there was two that stood out to me. The first one, suspend your ego, and the last one, be generous. And they're 2 things that probably creep into modern society. And I think you talked about the 50,000 likes to get, one validation, etc. And that drives ego. But it also drives the fake generosity aspects of the modern world as well. So those 2, if we could pick them up, maybe, and we'll just have a little chat about them.
And we can blend those 2 together because all those really go hand in hand. So ego suspension, most definitely the hardest thing to do. And you said it a few seconds ago, said, oh, this all sounds very easy when you lay it out like this. And it is. The thing that makes it hard and challenging for each of us, and this is the thing to do too, no one should ever beat themselves up for where they think they fell short. We are our own worst critics, much worse than we are on other people. We're all working on this. It's not a big deal. Just know that you're working on this. And so part of that working on this, the thing that undermines these great relationships, these great dialogues, these great conversations, is our own ego, our own vanity, and most importantly in there, our own insecurities. We all have trauma responses. We all have trigger points that triggers our feelings of being left out, triggers our feelings of not being part of, triggers our feelings of we're being disenfranchised, whatever it is. We get a flare of a victim mindset. And when it happens, our shields go up, our defensiveness go up, our mouth starts opening in ways that are not helpful. And so that is what I mean by ego suspension. If everyone can just remember, very, very rarely, if ever, is anyone doing anything to you. You are just in the way of their insecurities. And so anytime you hear, and this is what the ego suspension really plays a huge part. If you're ever in a conversation, a dialogue, an interaction with someone, and you feel they're being inappropriate, you feel they're ranting at you, being angry at you, and it's flaring up your insecurities and you want to flash back, just remember this. They're just being who they are, and you did something that made them feel insecure, unsafe, and disenfranchised, whatever it is. And so they are literally reacting to, granted, doesn't mean it's appropriate or inappropriate. It just is. They are being insecure with their language because of you. And so ask yourself, what did I do that didn't allow them to feel safe conversing with me? What action did I take? What's going on in this situation that they don't feel safe enough to calm down? And so when you can let go of your own wanting to lash back, wanting to get revenge, wanting to get the one-liner and whatever it is, and just literally ask yourself this very simple question: is what I'm about to say or do going to help or hinder a healthy dialogue and a healthy relationship? Because that is the only way we solve challenges and problems, is with a good, healthy relationship and a healthy dialogue. And if you start reacting back to them the same way without suspending your ego, it's just chaos. And there's, to me, there's no right or wrong to this. It just is. And so that's probably the first thing to do. And then be generous. Here's what generosity is. And generosity, it's probably going to be the bravest thing you do. Be generous with kindness to start with. There's a great game theory that's been proven millions of times over, and that's called tit for tat. And tit for tat starts with the fact that in these game systems, in every system in life, they've experimented with, the back and forth and collaboration, not collaboration, what's most advantageous. And what they found through playing this out, not just in short term, but we're talking like thousands of years into the future, when the way these games work, is that when people start out with kindness, eventually it will come back to kindness. No matter what the other person reciprocates with, if they want to poke or jab you back, you just mirror the last reaction they take, but always start with kindness. And in other words, let go of your ego, let go of your vanity. When they finally come around to reciprocating with kindness and generosity, all will fall into place. And so first, with generosity, be generous with your kindness, be generous with your grace that you give people, and don't hold on. And most importantly, be generous with your time. So those are a couple things to do. Again, easy to say, can be hard to do because it requires us to take a leap of faith in many of these situations. But I guarantee you, the way the laws of averages and statistics play out and the way the human behaviors is just a cause and effect, they all are exceptionally predictable and they do work.
And again, sounds so simple when you lay it out like that, Robin, but yeah, very impactful, especially generous with time. I think time is something we only have a finite amount of, and it's very hard to find hours in the day, but box it off.
And I hate to interrupt, Francis. And here's what I want to do: this one thing with time too. So think about this. People will make the excuse or rationalize that I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to sit down and have a cup of coffee with someone. I'm not talking about that. You're right. That takes more time. You know how long it takes to be generous with time when you just do this? So Francis, what was that spark of inspiration that set you on the path to who you are today? How long did that question take?
Seconds. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm going to listen to the answer you had, and I'm going to remember that answer you had. Say, Francis, I can't wait to hear more about that. I'll tell you what, if you got a chance later this week, can we follow up with that? Boom. Who was that entire conversation about?
Me.
I now have a spark that's going to give me your life arc. I'm going to start hearing what is a challenge, a priority, and pain point in your life. I'm going to start understanding how you make decisions. I'm going to start understanding all things about you. And they only have to come in little seconds of glimmers. And now think about this. During the course of your day, how many people did that? Slim to none. You be the one person it takes 3 seconds to ask a question that means something to the other person. And is that time well spent? Yes.
I think, Robin, this brings me onto something that I was a bit fascinated when I was doing my background research, and you talk about how to be unforgettable. Is that one of the techniques?
Yeah, it is. How to be unforgettable. It's not how you make people feel about you that matters. It's how you make them feel about themselves. One of the greatest things you can do with another human being is discover the greatness in them they never even knew was there. When you're just, we're all born with, I truly believe this. I think we're all born with like one genetic spark or talent. And then it's up to us whether we give that spark or talent some water and nurturing to give it the reps it needs to kind of flourish into something more. Mine, I'm positive. I'm a positive aspect guy. I used the analogy the other day that, I see the glass as half full no matter how much water is in it. If there's only this much water in it, and if it drains completely out, I get a hose, I fill it back up, and it's still half full. I mean, I am that kind of positive guy. So when I'm conversing with someone, of course you have challenges. Of course you have weaknesses. Of course you have things you're working on. Of course there's things about you I might find irritating. But you know what? We all do. So do I. I don't look at those. I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to find the greatness in you. I'm going to find what we have in common. And that's how you become unforgettable, because I'm not focused on what I can do to impress you with me. I'm trying my hardest. I'm going to find what's impressive about you to you and to me. And if it's not work-based, I'm going to find something about, friends, I'm going to remember about this conversation when we connect again after this, no matter how long in the future it is. 4-year-old son. No matter what, at the end of the day, I could see the spark in your eye talking about your son. That's what matters, and that's what matters to you. So that's how you become unforgettable. Be the person that talks about the thing that matters the most to the other person.
I also have an 11-week-old, but I won't get into him. Because he's making the eyes look very tired at the moment.
Hey, here's a positive thing about that too, Francis. We never remember average days. We only remember really challenging ones or really awesome ones. And I didn't say bad ones, I said challenging ones. Our brains work that we remember those challenges. So remember, every day you have a challenge with your son, you just know, this is a great gift he's given me today. I'm going to remember this day.
I must reframe. I'm going to have to reframe my thought process on some of these, Robin, after this conversation.
100%. It makes life a blessing. I'm also into Stoicism and Eastern philosophy, and I read the Tao Te Ching every day, by Lao Tzu, and also I'm into the astrophysics. I'm into all these things by Neil deGrasse Tyson as well, and other astrophysicists. And when you take this global perspective of things and the probability of just us being able to breathe this air in this entire universe, it is such an infinitesimally small probability we get to live. And so here's the way I think about every situation every day. That's why the glass is half full. We all have the amazing privilege, as long or as short as it is, we all have the privilege of dying one day. That so few things in this universe ever get a chance to do. And so what a great blessing, what a great privilege. And so every time something happens, lean into it, man, because if it's a challenging moment, you're going to remember it. It's going to be a great rep. You're never going to do it that same way again. You're going to learn something from it. You're going to move forward from it. And so few organisms or particles in this universe get a chance to do that. So that's how stupid optimistic I am.
Oh, it's very good. It's a great perspective on life, Robin. It's a great way to have that infinite optimism and see the best in the situation. And I think I would agree. You learn more from your worst days than you do from your best days sometimes, and that's foundational to who you become as an individual over the years. It's like making a diamond. All that compression. Sometimes it kind of comes out the far side as something beautiful.
Absolutely. I read enough history to see how blessed we are to live in this time period. I read a lot. I've read so many survivors of Auschwitz's stories. I just finished one called Daughter of Auschwitz, The Redhead of Auschwitz, Into the Woods, Viktor Frankl's, Man's Search for Meaning, Ellie's Work Into Night. I mean, and then even you go back further, all the way to the 14, 15, 1600s in Europe or anywhere else in the world. Being marauded by highway bandits, dying of every single disease on the face of the planet that no one could figure out. I mean, mortality rates were abysmal. One in 4 children didn't make it past 3 years old. I mean, really, we're okay right now. No matter how bad as anyone thinks it is, we are pretty darn good right now. And it's going to keep getting better. Now, it doesn't get better in time frames of a year or two a lot of times, but it does get better over time.
Over time. Robin, I wanted to ask you before we finish up. We've talked a lot about trust, but in our lives, in relationships, in business, if trust is broken, in your opinion, can you fix that? Can trust be regained?
Yeah, a common, most challenging question is, hey, if you're in a situation, you've done something silly or stupid, or the other person did that broke that trust, what can you do to regain it? And yes, it can be regained, but it is a long haul and a challenging road because it's not up to you. Now you can do things that you can hopefully move that pendulum to start swinging back in the direction, because what happens is when we lose trust is the other person didn't feel safe with you, and you did something that was counter to their feelings of safety, security, and prosperity for themselves and those they care about. That's what blows trust. You didn't operate with the behaviors of trust, which is that open, honest communication, the transparency, and vulnerability. So, when with that understanding that you did something to make someone or inspire them to feel unsafe, or you didn't have the behaviors of trust, in order to rebuild, you have to own it. You have to say, listen, I completely understand that I did this wrong. And I will now start working for, not just in my words, but now in my actions, to rebuild that trust by giving you full transparency and openness in the area that you didn't feel safe in with me. What more do you need? What do you need to do this? Allow them to have free, full access to whatever area, aspect, or you that they didn't have, that didn't feel safe. And most importantly, you have to do so on their tempo and their timeline. If they say they want nothing to do with you and never talk to me again, the only thing you can do is honor it. There's no making anyone ever do anything. All you can do is hope to inspire them to want to, because that's the difference between you convincing someone to trust you again. You can't. All you can do is hopefully inspire them to want to, unlock it from within themselves that they're willing to. And you have to give that open, honest communication, transparency, and vulnerability in all the areas they felt you didn't, at the tempo that they want, as frequently as they want. I mean, just look at all that energy. Look at how vulnerable you're making yourself. So the long answer is yes, you can. That's what you have to do. And if you don't ever have to want to do that, don't blow trust in the first place.
Which is good advice again. Robin, we're seeing reports in Europe at the moment, and specifically in Ireland, where North Korean entities are placing insiders in organizations to create insider threats, and a lot of them are against U.S. companies in Ireland as well. Mandiant, I think it was Google's threat intelligence team, actually brought the report to the public in the last couple of weeks. Is there with I suppose the growing tensions in Europe with what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, and the wider world, we're in a very unsteady place geopolitically at the moment, and that's probably driving a lot of bad actors or nation state attacks. Is there anything organizations can do to help bolster themselves against the human element of risk and threat to their organizations internally?
There's two things in there. First, I want everyone to first take a deep breath. And deep breath in the sense of, I know everyone's feeling very unsafe because of the world's geopolitical challenges and dynamics that are going on. But as a study of history and a knower of all the things that are going on in the intelligence world, it's okay. Everything's going to be okay. It's not any worse today than it's ever been before. And a lot of people think it is because we live in the now and not yesterday, but it really has been much worse in the past. And yeah, it's challenging now, and there'll always be challenges. But these challenges are nothing new to the world at large. We just happen to know more about it because of the way information flows now and the way that people are using information and weaponizing information, all those things. And so I don't, from my optic, again, I have a limited optic as a one individual human being, but from my optic of being 22 years inside the FBI and the intelligence community, I don't see anything any worse or better than it's been in the lifespan I spent doing it. So that's the first thing, is take a deep breath. It's going to be okay, because no one wants bad things to happen. One sec. So that's the first thing. Now, things we can do for the human factor. Yeah, you can just assess people for trustworthiness. And so what's really simple to do that in these situations, everything we talked about today, about what you can do to inspire trust in others, about making the conversation about others, about having the behaviors of trust with that open, honest communication, transparency, and vulnerability. Now reverse it. This is what your expectation should be of others. This is what you're looking for in others. So if you have, because granted, if we have lasting, strong relationships and healthy relationships with people, first of all, healthy relationships look like this. There's no drama. Drama is unhealthy. Drama is chaos. If it's too busy, too complicated, and people are giving you a lot of double words, I mean, if they're all over the place, that's drama. I'm telling you, that's unhealthy. I'm not saying of what you should or shouldn't do, just telling you chaos begets chaos. And you cannot solve problems if all you get is a lot of swirling chaos around you. So you got to put that aside for a second and anchor down on keeping things simple. And if you can, keep the people that are in your life simple, focused, no chaos. And so the way you do that is you're looking for people to use healthy language with you, having them use the keys of communication. Look for how they're interacting with others. Are they seeking the thoughts and opinions of others, or are they angry and pontificating out their own? Are they talking in terms of your challenges, your priorities, your pain points, your friction points, and those of others, or are they focused on self? 3, are they non-judgmentally and actively curious about everyone else around them, about how to solve problems, or are they so focused on solving their own problems? And 3, are they empowering people with choice to let them feel safe with what's going on and give them choice about how to move forward collaboratively together? And then when they are open, honest with their communication, they're being transparent and being vulnerable, meaning that they're owning when they're making mistakes. They're telling you and sharing you openly what they're doing to overcome them. And when they're doing all these things that we're saying behaviorally in the same tempo, in other words, there's no tempo deviation. So if you come back with a question that you didn't have a lot of clarity on, say, listen, Francis, you just said this. I don't quite understand that. Help me understand, what did you mean by that? They should be able to respond the same tempo, the same tenor of voice, the same intonation, the same nonverbal cues and tempo, and be very clear and concise on that answer, or own the fact that they don't know the answer. That is what you can trust. Now, if all of a sudden they shift, they block, they blade, and they're telling you something different, it's incongruent with what they're sharing, that's a reason to take a pause and say, we have an issue here. Now, I'm not saying say this out loud, but here's an issue where there's a lack of transparency, there's lack of openness, and we have incongruence with tempo. So this is an issue for them, and we need to either explore this deeper to solve it, or we need to walk away from it. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for good, healthy behavior from those I'm engaging with.
Okay. I'm gonna have to replay this after and write down a couple.
I call it death by Robin. It's a lot of information nonstop. But hopefully, when you do listen to it again, and everyone does, do a replay on this. It really is simple. Remember this: to keep it all simple, what are you going to do to inspire someone to feel safe with you? To do that, you need to understand that all human beings are always going to act in their own best interest in terms of their safety, security, and prosperity for themselves and those they care about. And that could be small, that could be large, but once you understand and do a deep dive of that, you can now predict that behavior. You can now understand how they're interacting with the world, how they're making decisions. And if you don't, and you're missing it, and they're doing it not with what you expected, it means you don't know them well enough. And so dive even a little bit deeper. Or they're just completely chaotic and unhealthy, and so you need to make other choices.
That's fair. It's fair and it's logical again. So, I think I can see how you've got a number of books in this space, Robin. It's you're a fountain of wisdom when it comes to these aspects. Robin, I've been looking at a lot of the different kind of interviews you've given, and you get brought in quite a bit to talk about the worst parts of human behavior, whether it's murders or attempted assassinations, etc. What do you look for in an individual that defines these behaviors, psychopathic behaviors, aggressive? How is that something that forms over a lifetime, or are you born with those traits and they just materialize based on the environment that you're placed in as you evolve in life?
Francis, fun question. It's the first time we're infusing my latest background in the last couple of years of doing true crime in human behavior. Here's what I'm seeing in every single case I've covered, whether it's a missing person, whether it's a abduction, whether it's a serial killer, whatever it is, it's the same thing. Guilty people that have committed these crimes, there's an arc. There's always an escalation. So just like we've talked about here, human beings, we talked about that lifespan behavior arc. Things that your son is doing at the age of 4 is going to be part of his spark and arc that allows him to feel safe throughout life. You provide a safe, healthy environment for him. That's going to be a safe, healthy arc. Now there's going to be little blips and bloops along the way, but generally it's going to be healthy and safety. What people are doing, the most abhorrent things against another mankind, where it's going into the realm of violence against others and crime at an escalated level, when it reaches that level, it's never, ever, ever the first time they've done it. It's never, ever the first time they've done violence or had violence or angry thoughts about someone. Now, granted, it might be the first time they've taken and escalated to the level of death or physical assault or mental, psychological damage, but it's always been an escalation. So the first thing I'm always looking for is if someone is a victim, and the first thing I'm doing is I'm looking around that person's close circle, because I think it's 85 to 95% of the cases, the people that have had violence done against them, they know the person. The person that does the violence against them is already in their life or connected in some way. So you're going to look at that circle of people around them, and the first thing I'm looking for is who's unhealthy. Who has a healthy, unhealthy background and established arc that says that they are on an escalated path to a violent or potential violent act? Because people do not go from 0 to 100. James Clear, Atomic Habits. No one forms a brand new habit of healthy, engaging life in a healthy way, and all of a sudden I'm going to kill someone. It just doesn't happen. Now, mistakes happen, accidents happen, and that's a completely different story. But generally in those cases too, where there's 99% of the time too, also there's some sort of alcohol or drugs involved in those cases too. So what you're doing is you just look at the law of averages of everyone and everything. And so it becomes very predictable about how these things played out, how they started, who's involved, who's not involved, because they're all following arcs of behavior.
Really insightful, Robin. And I think we're just up on time, but it's been an absolutely inspirational conversation. There's so much value in there, and I think the listeners are really going to get a lot out of it. So really, really thank you for coming on and speaking with me today.
Oh, my pleasure, Francis. And for everyone listening, he said it once already, but I want to encourage everyone to do it too. Puts a lot of time and effort into putting this together and bringing great people with great knowledge on for you all. So make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and share it with your friends.
Robin, amazing. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Such a pleasure. Thank you.